Hey guys, welcome to another session of RBTL. We're going to go through the balance adjustment preview, the October 8th one. This one's a huge one. There have been ones in the past where I just said, yeah, this one's pretty good. This one's like almost all of them are really good, including the exclusive equipment adjusted on Charles. I'll get to that when we get to Charles. It's a pretty simple one, a very simple swap that makes it much more effective. So I think, yeah, there's going to be a lot more usable Charles now, especially on like an AI defense team. Anyways, first things first, we're going to talk about SBA. So still not looking into Sage Baal. I guess they're still having problems making him work. Silverblade Aramintha, first things first is Flame Release, which is her passive. This is the one that usually, you know, gets people with the ultimate like Abyssal Crown stun. It's kind of like, it would kind of like work like Broman now. You know, people would know that Broman's pretty toxic, but he can do the silence. He can do his own CR pushback and extra turns, and it's AOE. His extra turn is AOE or additional attack, whatever. It's AOE, so like the Abyssal Crown is crazy. Flame Release is attacks all enemies and now has a 60% chance to burn for 1 turn, which is already crazy. Just more burn damage. Yeah, sure, okay. And then increases the combat radius by 25%. That's a huge deal. Of course, we're talking about 20% being like 1 out of 5. This is like 1 out of 4. So she's gonna get her turn much faster. It's gonna be annoying. She will still need a strip, and I think that's the reason why they're not afraid of making her like this. I would say that, like, compared to what she was like before the nerf she had, she's probably on par. They're focusing on different things. So basically the stun is remaining low, whereas her stun rate was higher before. But this extra burn thing, I don't even know if that's even necessary. The unhealable for 2 turns for Meteor Fall, her S3, is a huge game changer as well. Like, first thing come to mind is that if you drafted a Rowana into it, usually her Flame Release would be an extra attack, so you would get a heal, like AoE heal, on a Rowana team. But now this does unhealable for 2 turns. The unhealable for 2 turns is 100%. There's no proc rate of it, so that's really crazy. Acquires 3 souls, which is even crazier now that she has, you know, faster combat readiness. Or more combat readiness boost means more turn cycling, which then means more soul gathering as well. With the soul changes that Smilegate already decided to implement into Epic 7, these very spammable, especially mages now, are going to be like very, very toxic. These control teams, I think we're going to see a lot more of now with Dollmaker Pro Horizon, Broman being very, very cancerous, Ambitious Tywin, Silverblade Aramintha coming out as well. I think these are maybe to address the heavy knight based teams. And yes, heavy knight based teams, honestly, like I think their biggest struggle honestly is more of control now. So it's kind of like another rock paper scissors sort of aspect to it. I think control teams before Broman got buffed, they were kind of like, they were used, like there was Dizzy, like Tenebria, Bassar and stuff like that, and then all these counters came out for like just full control teams, and then now they're kind of like coming back in with the Ambitious Tywin buff, like I said, the Broman buff. There's so much more now for control teams. This is interesting how the metas keeps shifting, but those who do have Silverblade Aramintha, I think this is a very good upgrade. It might not make you use her as much as you still would like, since again she still needs setup. You probably have to draft like two strips with her inside, and she still have to have like really good gear, good speed, tanky, high effectiveness, splash of attack if you have it for the burn damage, but mainly the effectiveness. I think the unhealable, like I said, is going to be big, because if you stun them, if you somehow stun lock them, an unhealable for 2 turns, I mean it's good. So no passive sort of heals go off. So like for example, like an Apocalypse Ravi with like a Timeless Anchor or a Crimson Seed or something like that, like you have the unhealable on them and you can just control them to death, do chip damage. Huge buff, I would say. It doesn't mean she's broken. Again, there are ways to just mitigate it, you know, have immunity buffers and stuff like that, but still it's very, very cancerous. I still am looking forward to what they do with Sage Baal and Cezanne. ML Ball, and we'll have to see. I think they're having a tough time rebalancing him, to be honest, because like with what he has right now, if you kind of like push him just a little bit forward, he might be too OP again. But we'll have to see, or he's completely useless. So we'll have to see. Kisei, 5-star RGB, another buff after a recent buff not many months ago. Now Dark Scar is the S2, penetrates defense by 30% without being stealth, an additional 30% while being stealth. It's a big deal, I guess. It's a 0.8 times mod on her S2, so it's a cleaving skill, but because it penetrates defense, it's a pretty big deal as well. I think people will probably build her like how they would build RB, and which is I think what people already do anyway. So speedy, 220, maybe 230 speed, and more speed but less damage. But if you have Alexa's basket on her, she gets a first turn. She might be a very nice cleaver to have. Again, into these highly based knight teams, because penetrating defense is one of the biggest deals here. So that's a nice buff because she doesn't have to be stealthed. So depending on the fight, you might be able to use her for a first turn cleave. You might not even have to use the S3 first for the stealth, but most likely you will after this buff. So grants the caster, so without a critical hit now, you will get the barrier no matter what. So that's a big one as well. The barrier keeps her from being knocked out of stealth, so then she can get the S2 turn off with 60% defense penetration. If you got Alexa's basket on, even better. More power, of course, much more power. That would outdo a cleave like from someone with RB, soul burn. You know, max focused S3, it would do more damage on knight teams, right? On knight teams, high defense based teams, so Ruel knights and stuff like that. But now you get increased combat range by 50%. So it reminds me of the Vivian's EE. Very, very helpful. And keep in mind that Kisei doesn't even have a really good EE yet, and they're already buffing her this many times. I'm kind of scared what she would be like after she gets her EE. Yeah, and 50% combat readiness. So I think like really she's kind of like a straightforward hero, a powerhouse, single target nuke into stealth so she doesn't get knocked out, pending they don't have a strip or a control team, and goes 50% CR boost, and then cleave everyone to death. So I think with these changes, she might be a really popular one into a lot of comps now, actually, now that I think about it. So I definitely say that she's worth looking into. Mine is partially molded because of the old Wyvern 11 before Luna came. I might look into that if I have the gear, but I would probably do build her sort of like an RB, so fast on a speed set. I'm talking about speed set RBs, fast, and you can get the stealth. Yeah, and then this is interesting as well, the awakened version. I should have just read this. Actually, it's the same thing except with the increasing cooldown. So instead of increasing cooldown for 2 turns, you get increased 2 turns once, 1 turn but twice. Well, the difference is, for newer players who might not understand that, is you get 2 separate rolls. So in the old version, if they resist it, like I'm talking about the 15% RNG resist. If they resist it, it doesn't work. Like basically the entire thing doesn't work. This is 2 times for them to resist it. So the likelihood of you landing it, you know, assuming that you have the effectiveness to go through the effect resistance check, you have 2 times the chance to land it. So even 1 turn on a skill cooldown is better than, you know, nothing from a 2-turn skill cooldown. So it is a big one. I definitely think that they're creating these buffs to deal with this tank meta that they've already said that they were going to address. This is what it looks like to me, at least. Ravi also becoming a very, very strong one. I'm leveling up her friendship right now for the free Mola, but with these buffs, I think she's gonna be very, very important to have. 35% chance to stun for 1 turn is her S1, right? This is the S1. This is very, very strong. I am actually surprised to see a 35% stun chance on an S1. You guys can drop a comment in the YouTube section below. Is there someone that already does something like this? I'm not quite sure. I mean, I guess it's as good as sleep. So I mean, there are sleep S1 heroes, so like Sage Baal, Momo, etc. But stun is different because you can't wake them up, right? So I'm actually surprised. Now with Ravi recently getting EEs as well, and her EE stats, which is up to 14% attack, is very beneficial for herself as well. I think she's gonna be very good. I know I keep saying this, but honestly, if you guys are, you know, familiar with my reviews on these dev buffs, there are some heroes I'm just like, it's okay. I honestly think these are really good. It's the scary part about this. Demon's Blood is her passive. Upgrade the cast attack by 15% and effectiveness by 10%. It's huge, right? That's a huge deal. It means that while she usually wouldn't need to chase effectiveness, when I read this, I'm like, okay, I gotta build her with a bit more effectiveness now. She gets it herself. This is a 5-time stack, so 75% chance, 75% attack. That's outside of an attack buff. So if you got an attack buffer on her, she's gonna do way more damage. You got 50% effectiveness, assuming that these are being stacked 5 times. So that's huge. 50% effectiveness. If you got like a splash of like a 20 in there, like just from like substats, or even if you were chasing it 20 to 30, you got 70-80% effectiveness, where she can stun for 35 here, and she can stun 100% on the S3. I think it's 100%. Yeah, I think it's 100%. But then if they're stunned, they get pushed back 100% CR. So it's a huge, it's a crazy buff on her. As long as you can build a really good one. I got a guildmate that has a really crazy Fire Ravi. I know he's gonna build her, and he's already used her in RTN and won the way she is, and this is just gonna be even crazier. So I am actually pretty excited about this one. It's good to see Ravi getting a buff. Yeah, and then yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's up with the buff there. Ken's this huge buff as well. I can't believe it, man. This batch is huge. This batch is really good. Ken, Ravi, I think these heroes have been wanting a buff for a while now. I think Ken's is good as well. He might be built now, like, again, high HP, high damage, but he needs like a lot more speed than even what people used to run before. I think 180 speed would have been the popular choice. I think he needs to get to like an Alencia level speed now. He doesn't really need effectiveness based on this skill description here. When he gets a 50% chance to defense break on the S1. If you get Vigor, this is like how he used to work. You get a burn for 2 turns. So the 50% defense break on S1 is a big deal. And maybe even if you don't use him in PvP, he's still going to be a really good PvE defense breaker. Now even more so. No proc rate on the S2 Celestial Kick. You get defense breaks for free. Okay, decreasing defense for 2 turns, granting increased speed for 2 turns. It used to be 75, and then when it has Vigor, it gets up to 100%, but ignoring effect resist. This is now going to be 100% no matter what, and if you have Vigor activated, it ignores the effect resist. So about the same thing there, but just way more likelihood that you will land the defense break, especially now with the S2. 100%. This is being 50%. Huge deal. Phoenix Flurry, let's talk about the Awaken After version. You can tell the skill cooldown has changed now to 4 turns, but it consumes only 80 fighting spirit. So really, realistically, it's about the same. I would say his turn cycling is going to be a bit better, but that's why I'm thinking of like a 200 speed, like what people are building for like damage Alencias right now, would be beneficial for him. Like 200 speed, like high crit damage, high HP ammo, Fire Ken. It's gonna be way better. The turn cycle is gonna be a lot more, but then you might be able to get it back faster. So I think that's the reason why they changed this. This is by no means a nerf. It will be different on how you use Ken, but I think this is way better actually. Because sometimes the problem is sometimes you will have a phase where you are not gaining enough fighting spirit quick enough if they don't attack you, and the cooldown is 5 turns. Now with the cooldown being 4 turns, even though Vigor only lasts 3 turns, but the fighting spirit is 80, it only consumes 80, so you get 20 left. It means that you should technically still be getting more Vigor more often, or even at the most it works about the same. But I think in a real fight situation, this is still better. This is still better than this. So very good buff. I myself though, I think in terms of like not having Silver Blade Aramintha, the 5 stars itself, I think Kisei gonna be very good. Even if it's pocket pick, she's gonna be a very solid pocket pick in case people are drafting these kind of like, I want to say like speed cleave teams, but maybe like a fits into the bruiser cleave team. So like she would still get the first turn off like their knights and 4 horsemen comps or whatever, but at least she's safe because of the barrier. Ravi's going to be very solid in this kind of control meta. Silverblade, like I said, going to be really crazy. Ken, I think with the defense breaks and stuff, I think it's going to be good, but I don't know if it's going to change how RTA is. So we're talking more RTA. I know RTA is like the big content, so I'm thinking about more RTA. Ken, I think the problem is that he doesn't have what Alencia would bring, which would be the defense buff. Alencia brings more to the table in that case, so I don't know if like a Ken would be like a replacement for an Alencia. It wouldn't be, but I mean he's still getting good buff. I'm not convinced that this will make him more usable, whereas Ravi and Kisei, I think those both are going to be way more usable. Shadow Rose, we'll get to this is I don't know about RTA use of Shadow Rose still. This is improvement. If you're using for PvE, this is a huge improvement anyway. You get increased effectiveness with cast for 2 turns, so increased effectiveness buff, I believe. So that's a 50% chance. And then the soul burn on the Spear of Darkness is now cooldown decreased by 2 turns. It's a 3-turn cooldown skill. It's S2. It dispels 1 buff and it also defense breaks. It's nice to have. If you're using it in a PvP, it is a nice to have. I don't see where she'll be used though. She doesn't bring enough to the table in my opinion in current meta. But who knows? I might be wrong. Kitty Clarissa already being used in RTA, already being used in Hall of Trials and even expeditions and stuff. I think this is a lot better. 20 soul burn, instead of increasing damage, you get ignore effect resistance. Very, very nice. It just means that she'll be able to strip. I would say she's like a stripper mainly. Like people use the S2 there for the strip. A strip now with a guaranteed effect resist. I mean that's big. That's a big one. She already gets another turn if she uses the S3. So that's like immunity buff, cleanse, and then she can strip at the same time and make them unhealable at the same time. So that's big deal. General Purgus, like it's gonna do some chip damage if you build them for damage or like even anti-RTA cleave. This might be nice. Overall, it's just a nice to have buff, not an OP one, but I think people who have General Purgus already built, they're already gonna use them anyway. In GVG, maybe even in RTA. Wyvern, I've used General Purgus in RTA, use them in Wyvern all the time, use them in Guild Wars still offensively. So I mean decent buff, just more chip damage. Celeste, this is interesting. Now I'm playing more and more speed and cleave comps. She has speed imprints and a really good setup for like CDOM and other cleave setups for like really good turn rotation. Oxlots, Athletica, those kind of like gels well chemistry teams. Now 85% chance to decrease the combat range by 20%. Huge buff. And then everything else is the same except you get more damage dealt. So overall, very nice. I don't know that if that would make her much more usable now. I think people will use her as they have used her before, but it's a nice to have if you have her build. Charles's exclusive equipment, this one's gonna be a quick one and that's pretty much it. So the dispel order is different now. So it dispels the debuffs on the caster before the skill effect is used after using Faithful Strike. So that's the S3, so self-attack buff and the defense buff. Sorry, AoE attack buff is self-defense buff. His problem before, his cleanse E was not as good as Vivian's, where Vivian can dispel 1 debuff from all allies, and then apply like an immunity and a greater attack buff and attack buff for the rest of the team. So in terms of Charles and Vivian, like they worked sort of similar. She's more supportery, he's more about himself, but the fact that he can actually dispel dispel the debuffs from himself, and this is all, and then he can get his attack buff and defense buff. That's a huge one. That's a big one. Even if he had immunity, let's say a Bassar did unbuffable or something like that, and you didn't quite kill him off, let's say on an AI defense team. I think it's more AI defense team though. This is where I think this EE will be used. I think most people would still rather, you know, upgrade the smash proc one or use the smash proc one in like, let's say a real-time arena scenario, offensive fight scenario. Maybe even offensive fight, you can swap this on, like for, you know, just the cleanse on himself if you know that he's going to be debuffed. Now obviously keep in mind that if you do get slept or silenced, this EE is utterly useless. So if, for example, you run Charles into a Broman and they face head to head and you are silenced, it's utterly useless. But the same problem is for Vivian as well. This is why Broman right now is seeing a lot more use than Basar, because a silence for 2 turns is much more threatening in the long run than unbuffable, because you can't cleanse it. You know, you can't use a skill to cleanse it. So that's pretty much it. I don't think Charles's exclusive equipment is like a surprise. I think that's the right way to go, but it's not going to be a big one. But definitely one of the EEs you might want to keep in your pocket to swap around. Like I have explained in my Vivian showcase video, I actually keep both the CR cut one and the cleanse one for different fights, because then they have a supportery aspect to it, and I think Charles's could work, but his EE is a bit more selfish. Anyways, that's my thoughts for this one. Hopefully you guys have your thoughts, and please drop in the YouTube comments down below. Let me know what you guys think about the buffs. How do you plan to use them? Might give you some more theory crafts and also some incentive to kind of chase a hero and look into them. Anyways, I'm gonna end this for the video recording. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.